Welcome to Board Gaming with Austin. Today we're going to be doing a how to play video about the board game My Hero Academia Plus Ultra board game. It's a board game for 2 to 4 players and plays in approximately 30 minutes. They say it's for ages 14 and up. However, there's nothing in the game that says requires you to be that age. It can be played by anyone as young as whoever can watch the show, which are going to have fans that are very young. All right, this is the board game box. These are the directions. I like to kind of go along with the directions. So first I'll do how to set it up, and then I'll do follow along with the actual instructions to allow you to follow along in your instructions on the video. And then if you get confused about certain components, I have a section where I actually go over things that might be a little confusing, or things that just don't make sense in the directions. I gave this game a 2-star for the direction component, and there's need for this video. So here's the directions, and I actually wrote a little script, which I'm going to actually start doing in my videos from now on. But for this, I want to begin with the directions here to do a components setup. So first, you place the game board in the center of the table as so. Each player chooses their hero and collects the hero board, which is this, the hero standee, which is this, and a plastic base, which is this. And then I am setting them on the side so you can see the art of the characters. You're going to want to start them in the UA High School in the center of the board. They are choosing Ida. I am choosing Tsuyu Asui. And that's important because I'm doing a gameplay video, and I actually base my players' moves on what the player that I play with actually does. So I play with my girlfriend on these games, and she does her strategies. And when I reenact her character, I play through her strategies. So that's why it's set up like this. You can set aside the 6 plus ultra cards. So that, first off, is one of the confusing components about the game. Plus ultras look the exact same on the back of the card. The way you know that it's a plus ultra is it says plus ultra on the top right of the card here. So you separate those 6 cards from the rest of the deck. Then you want to shuffle up this deck and set it right here. It's a 46 card deck. And then you're going to want to take the plus ultras over here and set them up here for now. You're going to select 3 of those plus ultra cards for a beginner game. And then in the future, you can use as many plus ultra cards as you wish. I'm going to choose these 3 specifically for the thing that I'm going to explain to you. I would recommend you to choose them randomly. Return the rest of them that you don't use to the box. You're going to draw 4 cards from this 46 pile deck and place them 1 on each location, ignoring the UA High School. If you drew the All for One card, villain card, then you're going to want to set that aside for now, draw a new card from the deck, place it on the location that you were about to fill, and then shuffle him back into the deck. For your initial draw, you're going to ignore the reveal effects on each of the villains, but the villains are going to have reveal effects. So it says on reveal in the bottom right that in the future, when you refresh those locations, you're going to activate those on reveal cards. Gather all victory points, they call them hero points, and damage tokens, and place them next to the board. Here's another component that it doesn't mention in the directions. It does show it in the components section, is if you choose Shoto Todoroki, you're going to get these along with his player board, game board. And if you choose Fumikage, you're going to get his Dark Shadow token. I didn't choose either of those this game, so I put those aside. The only place it shows those is in the game components section. All right, each player then rolls the 6 dice here to determine who goes first by who has the most punches. All right, so I got no punches. They would, let's say they rolled 1 punch, they go first. So this is how you actually play the game. The game is played over by rounds. Sorry, the game is played by phases. You go through your phases, and then every other person goes through their phases in clockwise order. So with Tenya Ida, she would be getting first, and she does the phases in this order. With the first phase, you move your character to a new location, or you can stay in the same location. 2, you roll your hero dice. Phase 3, you spend the dice. Phase 4, you resolve cards on the table. Phase 5, you end your turn, and I'm going to go over each of these in detail. So on phase 1, you move. You can stay or move your location. So you can stay in the same location and do that thing again, or you can move. She does not get victory points. Tenya Ida does not get victory points if he does not move to a new location. 2, on the phase 2, you roll the dice, the blue dice. And I specifically say blue dice because there is a red dice, which I will actually get to later. So you can roll the blue dice up to 3 times. You must roll it at least once, but you can roll it up to 3 times. After each roll, you may set dice aside and keep rolling the remainder. On your third and final roll, you can decide to roll any dice one last time, including dice that are set aside. After your first roll, you may stop rolling at any time. So let me show you that here by rolling the dice. After my first roll, I can decide to stick with what I rolled. Or you can roll up to 2 more times. You can either decide at this point, do I want to put any of these dice and set them aside? Or not. So you can put as many of them aside or none of them aside. So let's say I put those aside, and I re-roll I roll again my second time. Well, I want to keep a heart because I need to heal, and I'll get to those as well later. Now, I roll my third and final time. Cool. So that is now what I'm stuck with as my final roll. Alternatively, if you didn't like what you put aside on your third and final turn, you can only do this during your third and final turn. If you don't like what you put aside, you can decide to grab all of the dice for your third and final roll and re-roll everything one last time. Then you must stick with those dice, unless your character allows you to change your dice in any way. All right. So now we have the third step, spend your dice. So your dice, each of these steps or phases are completely separated from each other and do not affect each other. So on your third phase, you spend your final dice roll that you see face up here. And dice may be spent to complete location cards. So specifically, event cards have requirements for dice being spent. You can use them for their unique effect, which I'll go over in a little. It's in the directions. Or if your plus ultra cards, say you spend dice in order to get the plus ultra card. Plus ultra cards are up here, and they're going to give you extra victory points that really help you either immediately or at the end of the game. And sometimes they say spend 3 of these 3 dice with stars in the 3 in the center of them. At this phase, you would spend those dice right then and there to get your plus ultra card, and you would get the plus ultra card immediately. Those are the 3 ways that you spend the dice. The directions actually go over how to spend each dice, because you have to do it in order. When we play, we do it in order from top to bottom. First, for each punch symbol you spend, a villain at your location takes 1 damage. You gain 1 victory point for every damage. So, for every one of these you roll, If you're at a location with the villain, they get 1 damage, you get 1 victory point. For each 1 heart you roll, either you or someone at your location heals 1 damage. It's either or, you or someone. For every damage you heal, whether it's your damage or the other person's, you gain 1 victory point per damage. So with the stars, they're a little different. So in a situation like this, if you rolled 3 stars like this, you would get the victory points of the number in the center of the star. If you rolled 4 of those, it actually was down there already rolled. If you roll 4 of those, you gain the 3 points for this, and then 1 point for every extra identical dice. You don't get another 3 points, just 1 more point. 1 point for every extra dice. And then once you spend those dice, they're used up. They don't become part of another spend. So if I use those 3 dice to buy the card that requires you to have 3 of those 3 dice, then you don't get to use those to achieve this requirement. And then with the villains, if you are on a location with a skull, if you're on a location with a villain and you rolled skulls, you want to look at the villain card because it specifically tells you what to do on the card here in the bottom left. If it has skulls as a thing. So for each skull result, you get 2 damage. If you're on a spot without villains, then you lose 1 victory point or take 1 damage. All right. Next, on the 4th phase, you resolve cards. So after you spend all your dice, then you're going to resolve all the effects required cards on required cards. Some cards activate if you failed before you take the card or if you pass. Those are all details listed on the quick notes. And then if you're defeating villains, you resolve the villain card before they're officially defeated. So, like for him, if you defeat him this turn, you're still going to resolve his thing that requires you to take damage if you rolled skulls. So you resolve the effect before the villain is defeated. And then I go over all the other cards and their effects in my quick notes. At the end of the game, or end of this video, I go over quick notes and some confusing components. Round 5, you're going to end, it's the end of your turn on phase 5. So first, you're going to resolve all end of turn encounter effects on the cards. It's going to specifically say on the card, end of turn, and it's on the encounter cards. It says, end of turn, heroes take 1 damage. You're going to do that during this phase. Then you draw and place new cards face up on empty slots, not including the high school. So there's going to be, when the villains are just captured, you're taking those cards. When events are completed, you're taking those cards. When encounters are completed, you're taking those cards. And then it's during the end of turn phase that you refresh those from this pile here. And then remember, as soon as you refresh those, you're immediately activating the on reveal effect for villains. All right, so the game ends. As soon as one player has 20 hero points, as soon as someone has 20 victory points, everyone else completes their turn, or you can decide at the beginning of the game how many victory points it takes for that point to come. So I think you should do more than 20 victory points because it's easy to get 20 victory points. And then you calculate your final score at the end, calculating up all plus ultra cards, all of your extra cards that you pull to your side, and your tokens that you've got. So quick notes. You can't get damaged or victory points in the high school, but you can recover there. So you can move to the high school, but you don't get ahead of anyone. You can just recover there. Secondly, when your damage is equal to your stamina, you immediately lose 3 victory points. Then you go to the high school, and the directions specifically say, this is the confusing part, don't spend the rest of your dice. Ignore this rule because you actually spend all of your dice in a completely different phase. you get damaged by the villain, and then you resolve the effects of the card during a different phase of spending your dice. So ignore that component. Third, allies, which are called heroes in this game, can be recruited by spending the necessary victory points. They are placed next to you and you gain their effects. Ally cards say in the bottom left, I believe it is, how many points it costs to buy that card. And then 4, encounter cards list their pass and fail requirements. So that was right here. 5, villains are captured once their stamina equals their damage. You resolve any card effects before they're captured. So before you defeat them or capture them, you resolve their effects. Make sure you're keeping track of the conditions to acquire these plus ultra cards, because at any point during your turn you can acquire one. You take these, you can acquire one. You can also take these cards from other players. So if they're not here, you can look at other players and determine whether you have met the requirements to take that card from them. Like this card here says, if you have the most cards at the end of the game, take this card and gain 3 victory points. This says if you have the most events, take this card from its current play area. Its play area is anywhere on the table, and it doesn't explain that in the directions. And you want to keep track of these at all times because they really give you a lot of points. And so lastly, the last 2 things is your hero's quirks activate based on the wording on the cards. So mine says before you spend dice, you may do this. And Tenya Ida says when you move, so then you activate their quirks then. Lastly, if you're told to lose victory points and you have none, nothing happens. Those are all points I'd like to make that are pretty much not in the directions, or I just wanted to clarify a little more. Thank you guys for watching my video. I did give this a rating of 2 stars, but I think it is fun. So I'd go out and